Are we ready? Not yet. Okay, I will say this on. Everybody, there's something that we can all overcome, so let's just say that. What the hell? We got a few minutes. We need to. I don't hear anybody. We need to. Are we ready? Okay. Okay, great. Now we're gonna begin. Everyone, welcome. On behalf of the Eleanor Roosevelt Independent Democrats, Grady Rose is president. Samuel J. Tilden Democrat Club with Faith Bondi as president. Three Bridges Democratic Club with Jasmine Sanchez, president. And CoDA, Coalition for a District Alternative, with which I serve as co-president with Alana Simmons. So we thank you for joining us for tonight's candidate, coming to tonight's candidate forum for the 74th Assembly District Special Election. So as you all know, our district is among the most dynamic, is among one of the most dynamic in New York City, while also very challenged. From Midtown East to Gramercy, Kips Bay, Flatiron to Stuyvesant Town, Petersburg Village, to the East Village and Lower East Side, we represent some of the city's most historic and diverse neighborhoods. Yet, across this district, residents share many of the same concerns. We are confronting rising rents and an ongoing affordability crisis, a growing unhoused population alongside many in supportive housing, concerns about public safety, struggling local businesses, and mounting tax and rent pressures in every class. We also continue to face significant challenges in the transportation and environmental infrastructure, and we must ensure that our public schools, our seniors, and people with disabilities receive the attention and the resources they need to thrive. The seat for the 74th Assembly District will become vacant shortly due to its current member, Assemblyman Harvey Epstein, who has been elected to City Council District 2. Congratulations, Harvey. Our core club told the district leaders for the district whose county committee members on December 2nd will elect the person to run as a Democrat in the resulting special election for the seat of Assembly District 74. This area deserves a representative in Albany who will listen, advocate, and deliver for our community. And our community in our district. Tonight, we're gonna hear from 4 candidates who have stepped forward to do just that. City Council Member Keith Powers, District Leader Marquis Jenkins, Sarah Batchu, and Kevin Okeeffe. We thank each of them in advance for their commitment to public service and for taking the time to engage directly with voters here this evening. This forum is an opportunity to hear not only where each candidate stands, but how they intend to lead and work with all of us to strengthen the 74th Assembly District. Thank you again for being here, for caring about the future of our neighborhoods, for keeping democracy active and alive at the local level. We asked, as Faith asked earlier, hello? We asked, as Faith asked earlier, that staff or candidate campaigns and office staff exit the room when we are interviewing all other candidates. After an opening statement from each candidate with a maximum time of 2 minutes, we will begin our questioning, followed by some quick lightning round questions at the end. The order of candidates will be Sarah Batchu, Kevin Okeeffe, Keith Powers, and Marquis Jenkins. And RuPaul, raise your hand, is here from ERID, and she will be keeping time. So let's begin.
You like that?
Good. Oh, good.
Sarah, want to take the hot seat?
It's not, yeah.
Hello, okay, I'm gonna actually start off standing.
You have 2 minutes for an opening.
That says 1:57, I'm gonna need every second, Rupal.
There you go.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here. I know we're gonna get into the issues in a moment, but I wanted to start off by telling you a little bit about why I'm running and why I'm running now. I know that every election is a choice, and it's fair to say that the stakes for our democracy right now are higher than they have ever been. I'm not running for power. I'm not running because this was the next rung on some political ladder. I am running because it's personal. I am the proud great-granddaughter of Jewish refugees. I grew up hearing stories about government violence and authoritarianism, but right now, I'm living it with my husband Christian, an immigrant from Venezuela. Every night, we go to bed worried about the horrors of an ice raid the next day. I know what it's like to live in fear for your loved ones, for your future, for your life, because of the cruelty of our politics right now. And that is the reality of most New Yorkers right now. And we deserve elected officials who understand that. Not people who once lobbied for ICE contractors and now want us to trust them to take care of our communities. I am running because I have a core set of beliefs that I will not stray from. I am running because I will always look out for this district. I fought for our community hospital. I poured my sweat and my heart into building a community center that now serves thousands of our neighbors. And I know that I can do so much more. This moment demands moral clarity. This moment demands someone who knows in their bones what the stakes of this election are. And I know that I am ready to serve all of you in Albany because I, like you, know that this moment is personal. Thank you so much. I'm excited to hear your question.
Great. Well, I have the first set of questions on housing and affordability, and it's 1 minute per answer. So the first question is, what specific state legislation or action would you pursue to increase affordable housing for Assembly District 734? And how would we balance the needs of tenants, small property owners, and residents concerned about neighborhood livability and health? 1 minute.
Look, we know that housing is the most pressing issue that we have across New York City right now. We have record low vacancy rates across the city, 6-year low vacancy rates. So where we have housing, where we say that we can build housing in this district, we need to build affordable housing. We should absolutely do it. But Manhattan can't be the only place in the city that builds affordable housing. Every neighborhood across the city should build a little bit of affordable housing. And to keep our neighborhood affordable, we absolutely need a rent freeze. We have almost 50,000 units of rent stabilized housing in this district, and we absolutely need a rent freeze. So the thing we haven't talked about is what we're gonna do for small property owners. These are mom and pop landlords that need help. They can't make improvements to their properties. They can't even keep up with their properties right now. And as Assembly member, I want to work with our city partners and our state partners to make sure that we're addressing the rising operating costs that they're facing. These are folks that are seeing astronomical increases to their insurance rates, and these are things that the state could be regulating better. They promised to do it for years, and we need to start doing that now.
Okay, and then the second question in this group is, are you in favor or not of the red bus pact for NYCHA developments that converts them from section 9 public housing to section 8 project-based Batchu system? And what is your vision for investing in NYCHA public housing?
As Assembly member, I will be bringing hands-on experience to fight for the funding and the transparency and the respect that NYCHA families deserve. It's that experience that's already earned me the endorsement of 4 NYCHA tenant leaders in our district as I'm getting a week into this race after announcing. My vision is to make the state a real partner in serving our NYCHA families. I'll say that the state does the least of any level of government currently. We know that we need an Assembly member who will fight for full funding of the Section 9 program, and I'm not afraid to say that that is my first priority, but we also know the reality of Washington right now. I know we have some congressional candidates that will hopefully fight for us in that fight, but we also know that the state needs to step up and fill some gaps that Washington is not filling. We also know that our NYCHA tenants deserve real self-determination. They deserve all the options for full repairs, and they deserve accessible, clear, honest communication about those options so they can choose what's right for their communities. And they deserve somebody who has actual experience fighting for full repair. And that is experience that I have, because that is the majority of the cases that this district receives, and they deserve someone who has experience in those cases.
Thanks. Please keep her time to one, we have a lot.
It's a very important issue, and it shouldn't be shortchanged.
Understood, there'll be a lot to cover tonight, all.
You cannot address it in 1 minute.
Health, safety, mental health, quality of life, homelessness, and substance abuse remain critical concerns across our district. If elected, what specific state level initiatives or legislative actions would you prioritize to address these challenges? 1 minute, please.
So last session, the governor made a very important update to the standards for involuntary commitment, which is something I know a lot of folks in this room have been asking for. That was an important update, but if you don't have the facilities to actually get somebody the care that they need, then that is not a standard that actually will have any weight. And so we know that over the last 10 years, we've lost 1,000 beds of inpatient psychiatric care beds across the state. We've lost beds in our own community at Beth Israel, and that's why one of my key campaign commitments will be getting a replacement facility in our district. We need a replacement hospital. Of course, we need hospitals across the district and across the city and across the state, but I want to start right here in our district with getting a replacement facility. We also cannot have people in a bed in a hospital that is not a long-term solution forever. We need affordable housing. We need supportive housing in the long term, and that's something I also support funding for.
Thank you, Sarah. I realize that not any of these questions can be answered fully.
I know, I was writing that down.
But that said, we're asking you to please stick to our plan, okay? Thank you. So, on education, what is your position on mayoral control of New York City public schools? Do you believe the current governance structure should be renewed, reformed, replaced? And what is your broader vision for how the city school system should be governed to best serve students, families, and educators?
We know that mayoral.
1 minute.
Mayoral control as it's currently set up does not work. We also know that the old Board of Ed system was not working either. We need a system that brings back control to families, that brings back control to our hardworking educators and to community. We need to look at the governance structure. One way that we could do that is by looking at the power that's given to non-mayoral PEP appointees, so that when we have decisions, let's say, school closures, changes to curricula, co-location, that we may require a certain number of votes from our non-mayoral PEP appointees to make sure that decisions aren't made unilaterally by the mayoral appointees, and that the mayor doesn't have sole power to make those larger changes.
Thank you. As the largest and most segregated school system in the United States with 1.1 million children, what would be your plan to mitigate this pattern?
When it comes to integrating our schools, I believe that the local solutions work best. We've seen that with integration plans in the Upper West Side, in Brooklyn. We don't want a top-down approach. We don't want a one-size-fits-all approach. We need to look at the way that district lines are drawn. We need to look at the way that resources have been allocated. We need to look at the way that admissions policies are working on the ground in that specific district. This work needs to be done in partnership with the families in that community, with the CECs in that community, with the educators, with the SLTs, and a specific personalized plan to that community needs to be developed. It shouldn't be coming top down from the chancellor, it shouldn't be coming top down from the mayor. It needs to address the local conditions in that community.
Do you support Mayor-elect Mamdani's proposal for fare-free buses? If so, how would you fund this initiative while also ensuring adequate resources for bus and subway operations, system maintenance and improvements, major capital projects such as the Second Avenue subway, and accessibility upgrades for riders with disabilities?
Do you remember when universal pre-K happened? I know at that time, there were a lot of folks who said this is not a good use of public funds. We shouldn't be doing this when people can be paying for private preschool. But now it's a huge success. The same can be true of fare-free buses. We can expand access, we can increase ridership, and we can also increase the political pressure to deliver a system that actually works for New Yorkers. I personally support fare-free buses because I think that they're actually going to improve the lives of New Yorkers. People in our district who actually rely on the buses. People like me, I ride the N14D every single day because I live 17 minutes from the subway by walking. And so I think it's essential that we actually roll out this program. And let's be honest, the few $100 million that we get from our bus revenue is not going to major capital projects like the Second Avenue subway. So let's stop treating our buses like a major fare revenue generator and treat it like a public good that it is, and build the will that we need to actually improve the system that we deserve.
Next topic is criminal justice and improved outcomes. So what specific state legislation or state action would you support or propose related to criminal justice reforms?
We have to do everything that we can to keep our neighborhoods safe without returning to the broken criminal justice system that we had in the past. For too long, people were being sent to Rikers for months, sometimes years, on charges that they had only been accused of, not convicted of, simply because they could not afford bail. That system was unjust, that system was dangerous, and it violated people's civil liberties. We cannot return to that system. I know the rollout of recent changes has not been perfect. We know we're seeing judges decline to set bail, even on bail-eligible offenses, because there are courts that are overwhelmed and they're understaffed. And that's definitely something that I want to address in the assembly. We need to make sure our judges and our courts have the resources that they need. They need to be properly staffed. They need to get the support that they need so that folks can get justice, and that we can make sure that the courts are moving smoothly and swiftly. And so that is what I will prioritize as your next assembly member.
What is your climate resiliency plan for the assembly district? Specifically, how would you address sea level rise and extreme weather? Ensure our districts are included in state resiliency and infrastructure funding projects priorities and reduce inequalities and climate impacts? 1 minute.
Hurricane Sandy showed us just how vulnerable District 74 and a lot of the city is to climate change and extreme weather events. And we know that the next one is just around the corner. As your next assembly member, I will be working with our city, our state, and our federal partners to make sure that the East River Coastal Resiliency Project is finished on time and that it delivers on its promise to make sure that we are all protected when the next weather event happens, because we know that it will happen. We also need to make sure that we continue to roll out green infrastructure across this district, because so much of this district is built on landfill and is prone to flooding. And then we know also that we're vulnerable to the impacts of heat, which is another climate-related concern that we have to worry about in this district. So that means bioswales, it means rain gardens, it means permeable pavement, it means cold roofs. We also need to make sure that we're investing in our organizations like ERID that are doing disaster preparedness on the ground and supporting vulnerable groups like seniors and people who live in public housing.
As state legislator, what concrete state level reforms or funding priorities would you push for to help the small businesses in Assembly District 74 who are still struggling with post-pandemic recovery and rising operating costs?
We all know a beloved business that's really been struggling since the pandemic. I like to think about my favorite business, 11B. Which is just out of Stuytown, and owned by Peter Cooper Village resident, Vinnie Scarlato. It was where my campaign for city council earlier was located. Vinnie saw a slowdown after the pandemic, a lot fewer people coming in and rising operating costs. And so we were actually able to take over the space and kind of give him a break from a lot of the costs that he was paying operating his business. One of the great programs that I think really helps businesses like that was something that Harvey actually introduced in the pandemic, which is the Manhattan Mom and Pop Relief Act. And this is a program that gave small businesses a break on the commercial rent tax, which is something that only impacts businesses in lower Manhattan. It's a 3.99% caps on rent, and it's something that I've heard over and over again from small businesses is a huge strain on them. I'd love to revisit that as your assembly member to support businesses that are still struggling after the pandemic.
Sarah, my topic is on Albany budget, economy, and pushback on Trump. I have 2 questions, 1 minute each. How do you propose that the New York State Legislature fill in the funding gaps that have resulted from Trump's refusal to fund the states?
Excuse me.
Everyone's got their water. We know that Washington deliberately delayed these cuts until after the midterms to save themselves politically. And so the first thing that we need to do, and I know we got a lot of Democratic Club members in here, is we need to knock on some doors next year, because we need to take back the House, because we can't let these cuts ever take effect. And when we do take back the House, we need to be crystal clear on what we're going to do. We're going to be very clear on our funding priorities, which is making sure that we save school aid, that we refund all of our benefits, that we save our priorities like public housing. When we get back all of those things, we just stop investing in billion-dollar boondoggles like a new Buffalo Bills stadium, because who does that help? And of course, if we do need to raise revenue, we cannot be afraid to do bold things like tax the richest New Yorkers and increase the corporate tax and invest in things that actually help real New Yorkers, like better schools, expanding our subway, universal childcare, and fare free buses.
How do you think the state can best push back on the Trump agenda? For example, how do you think the state should respond if Trump sends the National Guard into New York City?
If Trump tries to send the National Guard in New York City, we need to be absolutely clear. They are not welcome here. And to be honest, Albany should pass something they should have already passed, which is the New York for All Act. This is an act that would prevent local and state government from collaborating in a federal immigration crackdown. This is something, again, that we should have passed last session at this point. And beyond pushing back on the Trump agenda, we have to be smart and we have to be strategic. We have to do something we did in the last Trump administration, which is engage in cooperation with our neighboring states. on things like vaccine distribution or on healthcare access. We need to work with neighboring states to make sure we're shielding our communities from these harmful federal policies. We also have to protect our local institutions, things like CUNY, like SUNY, our healthcare institutions like H&H, so that immigrants can safely access services there without fear. And we need to make sure that we're electing leaders like myself who are ready to stand up and fight for our communities.
Okay, the next question is about Democratic Party reform, transparency, and constituent engagement. What is your plan for building the institutional infrastructure like staff, committee relationships, constituent services necessary for success in the Albany Chamber?
So I believe I'm the only candidate in this race who actually has administrative experience. I worked at City Hall, which gives me a little bit of, I'll say, a superpower. I know how to get agencies to respond to my requests, which is actually very hard to do. And that's something I want to bring to my legislative office in Albany. My team is going to run strong constituent services. I want to hold weekly office hours. That's something I did when I ran my city council campaign earlier this year. And I'm not talking about 9 to 5 office hours, because who can actually make those kinds of office hours? We all have jobs, we all have daily lives. I'm talking about weekends. I'm talking about evenings. I'm talking about, I'm gonna give you my cell phone number right now. You can take it down. It's 646-807-9467. If you didn't get that, I'm gonna give you my business card after this. Please call me. I'm not changing that number. I'm not trying to hide from you. You can contact me anytime. I'd love to explain how I'm gonna vote on future bills to you.
And Sarah, could you name a bill you've introduced to serve the 74th Assembly District?
My first priority is healthcare. We know that Medicaid and Medicare cuts are coming. Like I said, we're gonna knock on those doors next year and hopefully we'll stop those. But even so, we just lost our local hospital. We have our local champion, Senator Kristen Gonzalez, who introduced an amazing bill that puts a moratorium on hospital closures statewide until we study the impact of this disturbing trend of hospital closures. I'd love to sponsor the bill, the companion bill in the Assembly. But I want to also go a step further and introduce a bill that would actually help us build a replacement hospital in our district. And also, I would say go even further and say no community should lose their local healthcare institution. We should have a bill that actually ensures that every community has a local hospital, because every community should have access to healthcare.
Okay,
I'm out of time. I'm saving time.
yes, we saved a lot of time. So, all right, now we have our lightning round. This is yes or no. That's it. Okay, so the first one is, will you commit to oppose any BBS measures regarding the state of Israel before the legislature?
I'm sorry, but that is not a yes or no question. That is a very complex question, and I have to come at that question from a place of. There is, I'm sorry. What happened on October 7th is unconscionable.
Those are yes or no questions. We're not. We understand that all of these questions could, evolve into much longer discussions, but our plan is yes or no.
I respectfully understand that, but this is a democracy and I would love to be able to speak up and say how I feel on this.
Not tonight, okay? We are doing.
Well, then again, I give everyone my number, 646-807-9467. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you and talk about this issue. It's an important issue. It shouldn't be brushed aside. And we should be able to talk about it. This is a democracy and I'd love to talk
We're
about
gonna
it.
move on to the next, and if you care to answer it, yes or no, that would be great. But we have a lot of other people to interview tonight. This is our plan, this is our format.
Deserving of conversation.
Okay, then please be respectful of it. Will you commit, do you support, or oppose the non-Orange bill, which aims to deregister nonprofits, Church of Israel, a related charity, Israeli, related charities? Yes or no? Or you can pass.
This is another bill that is deserving of a full conversation.
Got it. Will you hold any other positions while serving in the legislature?
No, I will not hold any other.
Do you support proposed revisions to the raising age law?
I do not support rolling back the raised age.
Would you commit to advocating for increased funding for youth services in our district? Commit.
Yes, I commit to increase.
Would you support or oppose an increase in corporate tax?
Yes, I support increasing
Do you
corporate
sup-
taxes to fund better parks, better
Do you
schools.
support raising the New York State income tax?
Yes, I support increasing the New York State income tax on the highest
Do you
earners.
support raising unemployment benefits for New Yorkers?
Yes, I support increasing unemployment benefits for New Yorkers.
Again, these are yes or no, Sarah, really, okay? Do you support or not support the use of specialized high school admissions tests for the 7 New York City specialized high schools?
I believe we need a more holistic process.
What's your New York City superpower?
Excuse me, my what?
What is your New York City superpower?
Running really fast to catch the bus, because you never know when it's gonna come again. So is that a yes or no question?
That one was not, but here, it definitely is. What's the most New York thing you've done today?
Ooh, oh my gosh, I don't know, touch the hole in the bus and then eat something and not wash my hands. Sorry, guys, I'm not a germaphobe.
Okay, and now we're looking for a 1-minute closing statement from you. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know these are really complex issues and you all have better places you could be tonight, but to be here with you, has been an honor. I think we all deserve somebody who's gonna fight for, all of our rights at a time when democracy is, really, really hanging in the balance. And I want to be someone who will go up to Albany every week fighting for you, whether you agree with me or not. I'm never going to hide from you. I'm always going to be accessible to you. And I'm somebody who truly is with the community. I launched my campaign just a week ago, and in just a week, we qualified for matching funds. We have raised matching funds over $70,000 in the last week. So I hope that you will join us in our campaign. We are launching our campaign tomorrow night. We have flyers available to you, and I'm here to answer any of your questions. I'm not going away. This is a movement that we'll build together. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. These rooms are from East Midtown Plaza. It is important that this is your space. But the chairs to the side, there's the chairs in the back, and also over here, we cannot use. This space was offered for free. And if they're sitting in those chairs and a leg falls off, they'll take it over my neighbor.
Anybody want to back down?
Everybody sit down again. We have our next candidate here, is Kevin Okeeffe. And we'll start with you with a 2-minute opening statement, and RuPaul right in front of you is the time order.
And I know RuPaul is always on. Hey, everyone. Yes, my name is Kevin Okeeffe. It's such a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Eleanor Roosevelt Independent Democrats. I want to thank the Samuel J. Tilden Democratic Club. I want to thank CoDA, and I want to thank Three Bridges for this truly democratic process. You know, we're fighting some tough headwinds on democracy, And it's wonderful being in a space like this. This is what it's all about. And what a great turnout. Look, I would rather hear an opening about, what I do for a living, about my family. I've been in this, community for well over 23 years. That's the date that I was married to my wife. But something just happened on the phone and I'm gonna sit there for my 2 minutes. Just got off the phone with somebody who does business with Blackstone. I think you know Blackstone is the majority owner of Stuyvesant Town. And I was afraid of this. Because of city NYS and because 234 proposals passed, if you're familiar with those, Blackstone is now planning to have infill buildings inside the property of Skytown. Because the city of Yes said you can be within 40 feet, as long as you're within 40 feet of another building, you can build. Very upset about this. We will not allow this to happen. Liz Kruger has introduced a bill to the state senate that will reverse what happened with the city charter revisions, and I hope that happens. I just wanted to get that out because I'm not sure if that was going to come up during the panel. Oh, I have 30 seconds. I run 2 community organizations, both nonprofit. One is the Manhattan East Community Association. It's been around since 1990. I took over as president a couple of years ago. And the other one is one I founded, and that's the St. Barbara Park Conservancy in Murray Hill, both based in the district.
Okay, we can start then. Do you want to stand or sit or?
I will do whatever you would like.
Whatever you want, whatever you want. So, all right, we're gonna start with some questions. You have 1 minute to answer each one.
After you stick to the 1 minute, please.
Watch rule.
Yes.
I would never do anything with it, but I did not stick to rule rules. We are in a committee together on Committee Board 6, that she's the chair of. Even more reason.
Okay, so the first set of questions are about housing and affordability. So what you were just mentioning, the question is, what specific state legislation or action would you pursue to increase affordable housing for our district? And how would you balance the needs of tenants, small property owners, and residents concerned about neighborhood livability and character?
Well,
1 minute.
easily.
That.
One thing about, we have to realize there's a lot of talk about scarcity of housing. Yes, we need more housing, but we have to also remember there's a lot of empty units. Take NYSHA alone, there's over 7,000 empty units because they're not being repaired. There are conversions that can happen all through our district and certainly throughout the city. Let's start with those. The bill that the, I was gonna call it something else, but I'll be nice. The real estate lobbyists, we cannot let them control our city. I am not taking any special interest money for housing for a reason. It should be from the people up these decisions and not from big corporation developers down. I don't know how many other candidates are willing to say that. I have turned down money from developers and their PACs. Long subject.
Okay, are you in favor or not of the RAD trust path for NYSHA developments that convert them from section 9 public housing to section 8 project-based voucher system? And what is your vision for investing in NYSHA public housing?
Just what I said is, well, let's start with the fact there's a lot of empty units. I'll take Jacob Reese houses. Jacob Reese is the closest to where I live. I'm in Skytown on 14th Street. I think Zulay, I saw here. Oh, hey, Zulay. Zulay, Bloodquest is the tenant association president for Jacob Reese. They have a vote. And the tenants there voted, we want section 9, we do not want RAD PAC. Couple of reasons. One, it takes away certain tenants' rights, and your eviction will be quicker, we believe. So I'm with Zulay on that. I don't know if you know that. I'm in your corner, buddy. Okay.
Public safety, quality of life, homelessness, mental health, and substance use remains critical concerns across our district. If elected, what specific state level initiatives or legislative actions would you prioritize to address these challenges? 1 minute.
And this is an intergovernment solution. You know what I really love? You know, Harvey's here. Harvey has a program called HEAL. And there's a lot of good components to it. And one of them is We know there are mobile units going around taking care of those that have mental health issues on the street. His plan has psychologists and psychiatrists in those vehicles and also more robust services so they can truly deal directly. I'm on the community advisory board for Bellevue. This is something we've addressed a lot. Senator Gonzalez last night, in her District 59 Senate, town hall, said that he wants $200 million for more beds at Bellevue to deal with the mental health once we take them off the street. I'm in favor of that.
Oh, okay, the next questions are on education. So what is your position on mayoral control of New York City Public Schools? Do you believe the current governance structure should be renewed, reformed, replaced? And what is your broader vision for how the school system should be governed to best serve students, families, and educators?
I was actually encouraged what our mayor-elect said is, let's make sure that the communities have a voice too. I'm very concerned, as I think you could tell, from consolidation at the top down, which was happening with housing. I like that he's come out and said we need to have a community voice in that decision making and not trying to do it all out of his office. Go ahead, so.
Okay, and your next question is, let me just get back to that. What is your position? Heard what you said about, Mamdani, but can you talk a little bit about what your broader vision is for how the school system should be governed?
Yeah, and I'll start by giving you a little bit about my background. I grew up in a household with a public school teacher. My dad was a high school public school teacher for 39 years, science, and also was the athletic director. So I come with education knowing a lot. I also, for 3 years, being the track and field coach in a middle school in our district, that would be the Epiphany School. What I see is that we truly need, and I think Zoran has said this too, with the gifted and talented, let's wait until at least the 3rd grade, before we consider, switching over to the gifted and talented. And I don't know if that truly answers your question.
That's fine, that's fine. The largest, and most segregated school system in the United States with 1.1 billion students. What would be your plan to mitigate this pattern?
Yeah, so I do like what Mayor Adams did, but we can go back to gifted and talented, where it was just based on test scores, and then he made sure that it was, truly not just segregated, but I think if you know, there are also teacher recommendations now to get into these schools. It's a really concern to me, that we still have in some respect segregation. I see the point on the other side. Somebody was arguing with me today saying, well, there's a ballet school on Broadway. Isn't that segregation? I said, well, I'd like to think that the demographic makeup of that ballet school, middle school, is. If it's not, I have a concern.
Hi, Corinne. My question is on transportation. Do you support Mayor-elect Mamdani's proposal for fare-free buses? If so, how would you fund this initiative while also ensuring adequate resources for bus and subway operations, system maintenance and improvements, major capital projects such as the 2nd Avenue subway, and accessibility upgrades for riders with disabilities?
Great question. First of all, there has been a pilot program for the free and fast buses. It was on 5 bus routes, not in Manhattan, but that's okay. And I didn't see any problems with that. How do we pay for it? Tax the rich. So what I see is that our tax brackets, that we have 10 new tax brackets, so we could have a more progressive tax. Certainly the top 1% will pay more. Also capital gains tax. Capital gains taxes is for investments, stocks and other investments. That should be taxed over 500,000. For those that have over 500,000, should be taxed more. And also, I'm very disappointed that you have states like Delaware, Massachusetts, New Jersey, where the corporate the high end profitable businesses, our tax rate is lower on them than the states that I just mentioned. My answer is tax the rich.
Okay, on criminal justice and improved outcomes, what specific state legislation or state action would you support or propose related to criminal justice reforms?
Well, first of all, we should not be using our jails to put those that ICE wants in those jails. Let's start there. And taking up a lot of our space. As far as budgeting, I mean, I'm gonna go across the board on this question. I want records closed, but I do, as far as justice reform, I do want to see hopefully, a justice system where our budget doesn't have to increase for that. And we can make that happen. We don't have to increase that budget to make things work.
What is your climate resiliency plan for the Assembly District? Specifically, how would you address sea level rise and extreme weather? Ensure our district is included in state resiliency and infrastructure funding priorities, and reduce inequalities and climate impacts.
This is, and I did not write this question, but I consider myself an environmentalist. I do run a conservancy. Why did I start the conservancy? Because I saw the green space, which is so beneficial to us, mental health and other reasons. The largest city-owned green space in the district is locked for decades. I led a campaign that opened that up to the public. I started the conservancy to make sure that it was stewarded and that we had free programming. I can't tell you, thousands of kids and others have benefited from that space. PS2, maybe one is right across the street. They have learned with us about renewable energies. We have classes on the environment, and we've learned that it's so important. I'm so happy that the state budget, we're really pushing, actually it went through the Renewable Energy Act. And hopefully will increase, so that by 2030 will be fully renewable.
Thank you. Next question is on small businesses and local economy. As state legislature, what concrete state level reforms or funding priorities would you push for to help the small businesses in the Assembly District that are still struggling with post-pandemic recovery and rising operating costs?
I think some of the fees that they have on them should be taken off, to be honest, to make them more whole. I had to switch drive cleaners yesterday. Why? Because when I went to on First Avenue and 20th Street, if you know Berkeley's in Stuytown, they're closed. So hello, Magnolia dry cleaners on 13th Street in the East Village. And it was so great to have the woman at the Magnolia say, this is so sad that businesses are going out. What can we do? And that's what she talked about, making sure there's not added taxes for these businesses.
I have two questions for you, and they're based on the Albany budget, economy, pushback on Trump. The first question is, how do you propose that the New York State Legislature fill in the funding gaps that have resulted from Trump's refusal to fund the state?
Tax the rich.
Okay, do you wish to say anything else?
I think I already did, but I won't pick up time by being repetitive just to be.
All right. How do you think the state can best push back on the Trump agenda? For example, how do you think the state should respond if Trump sends the National Guard to New York City?
One more time, sorry.
How do you think the state can best push back on the Trump agenda? For example, how do you think the state should respond if Trump sends the National Guard into New York City?
Well, first of all, we have to start with rights of those that they are trying to go after. I really like something that's introduced. It's called the MELT Act on the state level. These ICE agents need to take their damn masks off and they need to be able to identify themselves. I think we really, and we're at a point, really? Are you that much of a coward where you need to have a little bit of cower behind your mask and won't tell us who you are? So we're gonna find out who they are, and I think that's a start, because once they know they're revealed, I don't think they're gonna be as belligerent as they are.
Okay, next question. What is your plan for building the institutional infrastructure like staff, committee relationships, constituent services necessary for success in the Assembly chamber?
I think casework is really important. What I find out, and with the Manhattan Community Association and a little bit with the Conservancy, we find ourselves being caseworkers because I've got somebody in the room that actually texted me at one point about an incident where it was a physical near PN 116, physical when somebody had accosted somebody. So we're dealing with these problems all the time. When I'm finding out from people, they're coming to people like me because they say it's too slow a process to go through 311 or even the elected offices. So to me, constituent services is probably the most important thing you can be Yeah, I know you're a lawmaker, you're setting the budget. To me, is constituent services number one. So I have a plan to make sure that within 72 hours, we respond to everybody that reaches out to the office with a human response, not automated. And those 72 hours is something that I do already, and hopefully we do it at the state level.
Okay, the next, question is, how will you scale your community-based experience into effective state level legislative action?
And that's why I'm running. I'm running because I've proven that one person is not an elected. Here's just me, just a guy from the community that made things happen. And it's little things too, or so-called little things. I've proven that we can do that. And that I just want to take it to a bigger platform. Look, I'm running to give a voice to those whose voices are ignored or silenced. That's just going on too much. My small example is there was in 2020, a parent came to me and said, why don't we have basketball nets on our rims, our public courts, and our public schools? So I investigated and found out the Parks Department can't do it because it's not in their budget. And they said the union has a deal that they can't go over a certain height, so they can't replace the nets. So I started a program underneath the Manhattan East Community Association umbrella. It's called Squish You Were Here. So we went out and purchased over 1,000 nets. And anytime we get a report, and this is in cooperation with the Parks Department, in the schools, like PS 116, we replace any damaged or missing net that we get a report on. The only caveat with heads is we don't go back and put another one up within 30 days because we don't want to incentivize people to take them down right away.
All right,
I'll just obviously, I plan on turbocharging that.
your time is up, and we have one last question before the lightning round. So can you name a bill you introduced that connects your park community space for housing or transit or public health to the 74th district in the assembly?
Yeah, and one is going to be that I'm already working on with Senator Gonzalez, and that's that any MTA green space should not be targeted for capital projects. And we're already working on that.
So now it's the lightning round. These are yes or no questions, or you support or don't support. You do not want to hear long responses, okay? So do you support Mayor-elect Mamdani's proposals to freeze the rent?
Yes,
Will you commit to oppose any BDS measures regarding the state of Israel before the legislature?
give me a little more detail on that, because this is a very sensitive topic. I want to make sure, I think that's fair, right?
No, it's a yes or no. Or you can say you're abstaining for yes.
No, give me one more time, and I want to get a chance here.
Will you commit to oppose any boycott, divest, and sanction measures regarding the state of Israel before the legislature?
I will look at it closer, possibly.
Do you support or oppose the Not on Our Dime bill, which aims to deregister as nonprofit certain Israel-related charities?
Possibly.
Will you hold any other positions while serving in the legislature?
No, I have an all volunteer, all my jobs are all
Got
volunteer.
you. Do you support or oppose revisions of the raise the age law?
One more.
Do you support or oppose revisions to the raise the age law?
I have to look into it more.
Will you commit to advocating for increased funding for youth services in our district?
Absolutely.
Would you support or oppose an increase in the corporate tax?
Yes,
Do you support raising the New York State income tax?
yes. And what at the top,
Do you support or not support the use of specialized high school admission tests for admissions into the 7 New York City specialized high schools? Yes or no?
I'm going to Madami third grade up, we can do.
What's your New York City superpower? Finding street parking, walking 12 blocks faster than a taxi, staying train delays? What's your New York City superpower?
Walking, I walk at least 2 hours a day.
Perfect. And the last one, what's the most New York thing you've done today?
How do you drive to them?
All right, so now we want to give you 1 minute to do your closing statement.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I've said this already, but I think this is a really important differentiator between myself and I know at least a couple other candidates have taken the big developer money. I just came back from Somos. I didn't go there to sort of hang out. I went there to observe. And overheard one group, Abundance New York, which is supporting two candidates here or having in past elections. And Abundance New York was saying, great, now we got rid of the local voice and city of guest. Our next big move is to get rid of the community board from the city charter. I find that disgusting. I'm on the community board since 2019, but that's not why. I find it disgusting because our voices do matter. If we see buildings going up at the Stein Town Oval, it will be too late. Stop taking away the community's power that I will fight for the every day. One last thing I'll say is I did a search a year and a half ago looking for the most statistically average American 20 years ago. Everyday people should not be ignored or silenced.
Great, that's it. It's not a good thing, but it's better than Everybody take a seat once again. We have Steve Powers as our next answer. We're going to start. Keith Powers is our next candidate. The group poll is at time for here. And we'll give you 2 minutes for an opening statement.
All right. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. I feel like I showed up to a pizza party here. I took the pizza away, but I'm City Council Member Keith Powers. Nice to see everyone. First of all, let's give it up for all Democratic clubs and all the volunteers. Go make it happen tonight.
This is not easy road, and it is amazing that they were able to pull it together. He just walked out, but I want to give a shout out to our outgoing, something of our Harvey Epstein, let's give him a big shout out. The Houston bill, really helpful for me. As you know, I'm city council member Keith Powers. I am the current city council member, for some of you, not all of you, but I've been proud to be a city council member here for our community for the last 8 years. And I ran for city council after being on my tennis association and community board, because I saw the housing crisis acutely in my neighborhood, sites and found, and what many of us are experiencing. And after doing the work in government and working on my tennis association, doing tennis organizing, I ran for city council in 2017. And I want to continue doing the work because we still are facing a housing crisis in the city that deserves urgency. And elected officials who have a background in housing policy and know how to do all the things to tackle that crisis. That's protecting tenants, that is fully funding our night chart public housing, that is building new housing in the city across all the boroughs of the city to make sure that we can drive down the cost of living. We also have a whole agenda in Albany this year to continue to fight back against the Trump agenda. And there is no more important place right now. Congress ain't doing their jobs. We need to make sure state legislatures are stepping up to the plate to protect our residents, our constituents, have strong blue states that are working together to make sure we protect their folks against the incursions from the federal administration that is coming. And to make sure that we can support the agenda in Albany that is bold and make sure we tackle the cost of living. I'm so proud of the work I've been able to do in the last 8 years on that front. And I'm deeply gracious to have the support of our Attorney General, Tish James, our Congressmember Jerry Nadler, our Borough President, soon-to-be Controller, Mark Levine, and so many more who I've been in the trenches in the last 8 years doing this exact work.
Okay, so now we're gonna start our question round.
Okay.
It's 1 minute per question. You can sit down.
Also, I just want to give you a recognition to my colleague, Eric Batchu, who's in the house as well.
The first set of questions is about housing and affordability. So what specific state legislation or action would you pursue to increase affordable housing for our district? And how would you balance the needs of tenants, small property owners, and residents concerned about neighborhood livability and character?
Thank you for that question. It is my opening statement. Having affordable, accessible housing in this district and throughout the city should be the utmost priority for every single elected official. I have included this work in the city council. I'm very proud of my record on housing. But in Albany, we have to do 5 or 6 things that I think should be priorities. I said at the beginning, we have to fully fund and invest in our public housing that has been underfunded, and need to make sure we fix our procurement processes to make sure that funding gets deployed quickly. We need to protect tenants. We have to expand protection for tenants. I'm so grateful for work that something our Epstein has done and others in Albany to protect protections for rent stabilization. We need to build more housing, not only in New York City and Manhattan, but throughout the entire state to offer more opportunity to people. One of the first bills I want to support and introduce is to raise the threshold on jury and spree, which is for our senior citizens and for disabled New Yorkers to make sure they get more affordability. It has been 12 years since they've gotten an increase on that. And 5th is we have 50,000 plus units of rent stabilized housing and many in our public housing that are currently sitting there vacant. We don't want to put any deregulation, but we do need to get those units on it. That's really good housing that should be in the hands of New York.
Okay. Next question is, are you in favor or not in favor of the RAD trust path for niche developments that converts them from section 9 public housing to section 8 project-based voucher system? And what is your vision for investing in niche public housing?
First of all, I've said it 3 times now, we should be a priority to invest more capital funding into the NYS, all throughout my district and hopefully district and the entire city. We also should fix appropriate procurement process that when money goes to them, those repairs don't get done on time and sometimes not even at all. So that's part of that. On the RAD Pact, I've said this, constantly. I'm on my tenants association, I still remember my tenants association. And it is really important that tenants have a say in what happens there. There are some complexes who want it and have chosen it, and there are others who do not want it. The tenants have to be at the table, they have to help make the decision. And for me, my decision is to back the tenants that and what they choose to do for their communities. The same way I would want that for my community is to have a seat at the table until they make the decision on behalf of myself and my community.
Public safety, quality of life, homelessness, mental health, and substance use remain critical concerns across our district. If elected, what specific state level initiatives or legislative actions would you prioritize to address these challenges?
Look, we are in a mental health crisis in the city. And it is due to decades of underfunding and disinvesting from the state level into our mental health system. If you walk to Bellevue Hospital, the cornerstone of our public health system in this district, in my council district today, there are 19 mental health beds. There should be hundreds and more. We should be reopening facilities. Our president has identified some very good locations where we should be expanding our mental health beds because we don't have the capacity. Nothing else matters. We can give people all the services they want, but we're sending them back out with their adequate treatment. So that's number one, to make sure. We've also done a lot of great work around quality of life issues in my time in the years. We took out scaffolding reform. Everybody hates that scaffold. We did noise pollution, new noise cameras here in Murray Hill. We took on e-bike fires. And also in particular, it's administrative, like on 14 and other places, making sure we're working with our local prisons to deploy resources to actually clean up the issues that they were calling something.
Thank you. What is your position on education, questions? What is your position on mayoral control of the New York City public schools? Do you believe that the current governance structure should be renewed, reformed, or replaced? And what is your broader vision for how the school system should be governed to best serve students, families, and educators?
Look, I do support mayor control. I think at the end of the day, like other city agencies, I think it is very important to have one person in charge. I think we have seen other agencies where when you spread out the amount of decision makers in that process, it gets very difficult to have one accountability. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be changed. There's going to be a big conversation in Albany about exactly how to make sure that that system still includes principals and teachers and parents in this decision making for the school system. And I'd like to see a lot more of that. On education, the two issues I've been working on a lot over the last few years. Number one is universal arts education in every single school building. There are still very many schools that do not have an arts teacher. We have put in the city budget with my encouragement, funding to make sure that every school gets an arts education program. And second, we have been fighting for the power professionals, our special education teachers in the school. They are way underpaid in this school, in our school system. We were out there last week fighting to get them the funding they deserve. We should not be serving our school building and have to work at low end. Basically, at home, it's just shameful.
Thank you. The second question is, the largest and most segregated school system in the country, with 1.1 million students, what would be your plans to mitigate this pattern?
Listen, in my 8 years in city council, we have worked through plans for different districts to make sure that we can desegregate the schools and to make sure that we are reevaluating, looking at the policies that have led to long-term segregation in our school system, but also let's address housing segregation, which is also one of the causes of that. And we have a need in our city right now to continue to build mixed income, low income housing that will help segregate our neighborhoods that have also led to that crisis. I've done a lot of that work in the city council. I look forward to doing a lot more in the state assembly, but it is unfair the way we're leaving communities out of some of our good schools. And we should be looking at the housing crisis alongside the education crisis to make sure that our schools are represented in the communities that we actually live.
My question's on transportation. Do you support Mayor-elect Mamdani's proposal for fare-free buses? If so, how would you fund this initiative while also ensuring adequate resources for bus and subway operations, system maintenance and improvements, major capital projects such as the Second Avenue subway, and accessibility upgrades for riders with disabilities?
First of all, let's acknowledge the most obvious way, because the federal funding for the Second Avenue subway, other things are at risk. So the state has to step up and the city has to step up to fund those applications. I'm a bus rider. I put out a bus plan earlier this year. I rode every single bus in Manhattan as part of my campaign, including free and affordable buses. So I support that. Supporting expediting our buses. By the way, we fought for the M14 busway. We've written the M14 busway. You can drop that. We're fighting for our new bus plan for the 34. Task could be stepped up and advocate for that and championing that. We are going to have to make sure not only do we make them more affordable, but that we actually speed them up, because you should be stuck on the bus all day if you want to get to work or go home. And lastly, we should expand the fair fares program. If we can't do the whole expansion of the free buses, I think we should actually look at expanding the fair fare program. I fought for that in city council in 2018. We got it a lot of ways to fund it. We should do a much bigger expansion of that program. And one last thing, because I want to give a shout out to something on our team. He has fought for our students to get free Metro cards. We need to get every student having free Metro card. They can buy the bottom, no matter going to school out there.
Okay, time on that one. All right, criminal justice and improved outcomes. So what specific state legislation or state action would you support or propose related to criminal justice reform?
Thank you. I was a criminal justice chair of the city council, my first term, and we did really important work to close down Rikers Island, put us on a path to closing it. But more importantly, besides that, is we're gonna replace that jail somewhere, we should be making sure the conditions inside of it are actually humane. So we have the new standards of conditions bill in the city council to make sure that the next facilities are not repeating mistakes of horrible conditions and work conditions inside of the jail. So we should make sure we're introducing legislation that reduces the conditions no matter where those are. Second is, we are about to pass a bill that I have introduced and passed that will put conditions for LGBTQ incarcerated people, because the housing decisions that are made in our city jails right now are not accommodating towards them. We're gonna pass city legislation to fix that. There is accompanying state legislation that I'd also like to see us pass, so that our state facilities follow the model of the city. And I want to say one thing, we should not be repealing solitary confinement. And yet, I fought really hard for solitary confinement to be revoked. We should not be repealing the law to ban solitary confinement. I fought for solitary confinement to be repealed in our city jails, and yet we're at the state level to walk that back, and I think folks do.
What is your climate resiliency plan for the assembly district? Specifically, how would you address sea level rise and extreme weather, ensure our district is included in the state resiliency and infrastructure funding priorities, and reduce inequalities and climate impacts?
Thank you. Who was here when Superstorm Sandy hit our neighborhood? And basically everybody. And I was there. I remember exactly the moment when the power went out in our neighborhood. I can remember walking down to Stuyvesant Park and seeing that water spilling over the edge and knowing we were in a lot more trouble than we thought we were. I remember those cars on NYS, they were buried underwater, looking at them, knowing this was gonna be not a short-term problem, a long-term problem. I remember being my neighbors in the East Village and Stuyvesant town when the power was out, and we were searching for anywhere to plug in a phone and find cell service. I also remember knocking on the doors of my neighbors to make sure that they had prescription medicine or food or anything that would pay their needs. And that was the reason we also need to make sure we had a resilient waterfront, to make sure we never had to live through that ever again. And that's why we did the really important work that we did to make sure the waterfront was taken care of and protected in the hardened infrastructure. But we also have to change the policy of New York. I'm very proud of my 100% record of New York to get conservation voters for the work I've done on climate resiliency, including making sure that 30,000 vehicles owned by the city of New York all are going to become green electric vehicles over the next few years. We should do that at the state level too.
On small businesses and local economy, as a state legislator, what concrete state level reforms or funding priorities would you push for to help the small businesses in the district still struggling with post-pandemic recovery and the rising operating costs?
Yeah, thank you. My dad was a small business owner, owned a restaurant right down the block. And my first job was waiting, busing tables in restaurants all in this neighborhood. Also, my first job was also, my other job was working at local D'Agostino supermarket. So I know acutely how a small business is struggling and changing. I also know what it's like to be a small business owner and having to leave your house at ungodly hours to make sure that you have to attend to the needs of what your business, your livelihood. And so I put a lot of bills in the city council that will help to this, but I'll tell you three at the state level. One is we should continue to work to repeal the commercial rent tax, which is a tax just on our local businesses. That should not be paying a tax just for being cited in the county. We should continue to look at regulatory reform at the state level and the city level to make sure that government isn't the problem. I hear this litany of acronyms from agencies that continuously get in the way. We need to staff our agencies, we need to make sure they're going for policies that get out of the way, and also where needed, give them targeted financial relief.
My question is on Albany budget economy pushback on Trump. How do you propose that the New York State legislature fill in the funding gaps that have resulted from Trump's refusal to fund the states?
And it's coming. And the National Guard might be coming too. And with, for starters, sorry. Okay, so I'll do both. We need to be very clear from the outset, especially when the new mayor comes in, we're gonna try to send the National Guard, that we are not gonna tolerate that, we're not gonna allow that, we're not gonna cooperate that. There's no negotiating away our resistance against Donald Trump, number one. Number two is we have to know he's gonna use his budgetary and financial powers to go after New York State and blue states. Blue states should, by the way, should be working together and more cooperating more closely on this. I proposed earlier this year that the blue states continue to fund our obligation to the World Health Organization, which Mayor Bloomberg is actually funding right now, but we should actually stick together and actually fund that so that we don't leave that entirely. But beyond that, we have to look for new options to fill it in. There is a proposal in Albany that I like right now that actually go after corporations in New York City that are actually evading their taxes by taking their tax liabilities out of the country. That proposal would raise $730 million to the state, and I think a creative mechanism to make sure that we can push back against Trump. We should be standing up for ourselves, by doing good budgets and being able to fund our priorities, so we don't have to go to DC in quite the same way and make sure that we don't have to be complicit with the Trump agenda. Sorry, I'm overall.
No, you were at time, you murdered two questions, so you. Sorry.
And so the next set of questions is about Democratic Party reform, transparency, and constituent engagement. So what is your plan for building the institutional infrastructure like staff, committee relationships, constituent services that are necessary for success in the assembly chamber?
Well, I have a problem with that, because I already been able to do this. Look, it is really important that you build a good team. I want to have a team that is deeply representative of our community, that's been working in here and understand the challenges of it alongside the work that I have to do for that. And in the assembly, I've been to city council for the last 8 years. I understand it, but I worked in Albany, by the way, as a chief of staff to the assembly member for 6 years. I worked with the assembly group for some member Jonathan Bin on the 2 year understanding of how Albany matters and also how to get legislation passed and how to build coalitions in a way that actually helps you get things done up there and work through that very complicated budgetary process. But what's important to you in this room is that you have a team that you can see and feel and responsive. And our goal, like I have done in my council district, is to be on the ground, to be responsive, and to make sure that you can see and feel and know where to find our staff and have a staff that is deeply reflective of the community that we live in and that I represent.
Great, so we've asked questions that are specific to the candidates, aside from the general, and for you, there are two.
Sure.
How would you leverage your experience in the city council to be immediately effective in Albany?
I think that is my strength in this race, is that I am, thank you for that question, that I have experience of already knowing how to go. So not only I have the legislative experience of working in Albany, but I also have the relationship experience with those elected officials to get out there quickly and introduce legislation introduced that I want to help our community, have the infrastructure already and know how to run a constituent services operation, how to be on the ground, and how to work through the budgetary process, which is really important for making sure we can bring money back to our community, invest in things like our public housing and our parks and everything else. I've been working with many of these folks for the last 8 to 20 years and feel very confident in my ability to go into Albany and be effective when they want.
In the city council, there was a bill that required co-ops to put in writing the reason for rejecting a buyer. Currently, there are 37,000 co-op units in your district. What is your position on that bill?
Yeah, look, I've talked to, I understand acutely the issue around discrimination. I've already introduced the bill as probably the oldest anti-discrimination bill in the entire city council history, which is the Fair Chance of Discrimination Act for housing, to make sure we tackle housing discrimination and a source of discrimination bill as well. So I'm going to do that. I just want to make sure when we do that, we're working with some of the small co-ops in my district and beyond to make sure that they are able to have a voice and sit at the table. So that, because I think right now they feel like that bill will negatively impact them. I want to come together and make sure we can have a voice for them as well.
Thank you. We're gonna do the lightning round. These are yes and no,
Okay.
or if you refuse to answer, you can see.
Well, I refuse.
Okay, awesome. We really like.
Well, maybe I will. Too excited about that.
Do you support Mayor-elect Mondami's proposals to freeze the rent?
I, every single year testify for 0% increase for rent stabilized tenants, so yes.
Meant to oppose any BDS measures regarding the state of Israel before the legislature?
Yes, I don't think that's the right solution.
Do you support or oppose the Not on Our Dime bill, which aims to deregister as nonprofits certain Israel-related charities?
I oppose it.
Will you hold any other positions while serving in the legislature?
I don't, no. They're not really interactive, but no.
Do you support or oppose revisions to the raise the age law?
I am skeptical about the changing the raising age law. We fought for it when I was a criminal justice chair. I'll take that. The question was, do I support or oppose?
Yes.
I want to see language, but I'm resistant to it. I'll vote.
Do you support raising, would you commit to advocating for increased funding for youth services in our district?
100%, yes.
Would you support or oppose any increase in the corporate tax?
I support.
Do you,
Sorry for both, but I support.
do you support raising the New York State income tax?
Sorry for both, but yes.
Do you support or oppose the use of the specialized high school admissions test for admission to the 7 New York City specialized high schools?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a caveat this. I put out a proposal a few years ago that actually, this is a good proposal. The proposal actually says to keep the tax, but distribute it to rest differently. It's I will send my proposal out. I think it's a very good proposal that solves more quality.
Support it. So, what's your New York City superpower?
I am the fastest walker in the street, I'm a very fast talker too, and I apologize for that.
And what's the most New York thing you've done today?
I'm trying to legalize bodega cats in New York City. And we're trying to legalize housing for artists as well. Those are the two most we want to.
So, those are, you get 1 minute for a closing.
Well, thank you everyone so much. It's been a long night. And I know we have a couple more candidates, but I just want to say thank you to our clubs again for organizing this. Look, I've had the unbelievable honor and privilege to represent this community, which I grew up in. I grew up right down the block, 3 blocks away. And to be able to continue to be public service on that community that I have fought for and love deeply. There's so many people in this audience who are serving on our community boards, our tennis associations, our district leaders, who add so much value to our community. So I just want to say thank you to you all for everything you do. And I look forward to hopefully continue our partnership. There are real serious issues happening in Albany that we have to take care of. I think I've been the greatest experience in day one readiness to do that job. To tackle the housing crisis, to beat Donald Trump in our backyard, to continue to work with all of you to improve the quality of life in our district. It would be an honor to have your support as we go through this process, and it's been an honor to talk to so many of you over the last few weeks as we do that. And I'm City Council Member Keith Powers, and I hope to have your support. Thanks so much.
Now before we begin the next candidate, we only have 20 people that have signed in. We need all of you to sign in with me. So we're gonna put this on that table and please make your way up if you have not signed. I could actually call it out. So, if you can have the reason. So, we have 10, so please make your way down. Thank you so much. Please come in and sign in. Sign it in.
Don't sign in with your name and full percentage for a $1 million raffle ticket, raffle ticket. And it actually works. If you don't sign in, we know where you live. Treasurer's guy.
Stop trying to be signed. If it's not something you would not, that's not the sign sheet. The sign sheet is
When you're done signing in and getting your seconds back. We have one more candidate, and, Emily has for the meeting. Okay, everyone, I think we're ready to begin. You have our next candidate, Marquis Jenkins, and he's going to give us his human open statement. Please, quiet, please, we have another candidate ready to go.
Wow, standing from here is such a great visual of the importance of our community and where you are in terms of being active and being informed. As we said, my name is Marquis Jenkins, and I'm the district leader for the 74th Assembly District Part A. What I want to tell you is why I'm running for the assembly and why I think it's important right now during this time. But let me back up and pause and thank the political thoughts for holding this event. And more importantly, I want to thank the county committee members in the room. You all are going to have a very important task. to select the next Democratic nominee. And I'm hoping, right, and I'm aiming to make sure that when you leave this room today, that you have no doubt in your mind that I am the best candidate to be the next assembly member. And I'm gonna share with you why, starting with the fact that I grew up in this neighborhood. My family moved here in February of 1989 to escape violence. And when we landed in the Lower East Side, we landed in a safer neighborhood. We landed in a bigger apartment. I got 9 brothers and sisters. And we landed into a community that fully embraced us. And so it was that founding, that nurturing, that took me to a place where I became active in my community. And so for 20 years, I have been organizing locally in our community and across the country in South, like Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas. And so I'm hoping that through this process, you will learn more about my experience and why it makes me the best candidate to be the next assembly member. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We're gonna start with our question. Now, do you want it down or? Who you are?
I'm going to get up and announce that.
That's fine. Okay, so the first set of questions are about housing and affordability. And so what specific state legislation or action would you pursue to increase affordable housing for our district? And how would you balance the needs of tenants, small property owners, and residents concerned about neighborhood identity and character?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I think we have to start with the definition of affordability. The area medium income calculation that we use in this neighborhood, that we use in this city is completely skewed. And what that means is we have rents that are being set at very high levels with residents who cannot afford to move into these new units that are being built. I think the other thing that we need to focus on is the type of housing that is being built in our community. Nearly half of the new affordable units that are here are for single family individuals, right? What we are not seeing, and this is important for me as someone who grew up with 9 brothers and sisters, is we're not seeing units that have 3 bedrooms or more. And so we're seeing our families get pushed out.
Okay, and relatedly, are you in favor or not of the RAD trust patch for NYCHA developments that convert them from section 9 public housing to section 8 project-based voucher system?
Thank you. This is an easy question. The 20 years that I talked about, I focused on public housing here in this neighborhood and all across the country. So am I in favor of the trust fund act? Absolutely not. I think it's another area where some of our government issues are leveraging or think that they can leverage the private sector to take on things that are critical. We've seen examples of RAD and PAC all across this city, and you will see 2 things. One, they still haven't got it right. Every single RAD conversion that they are trying to do has been upgraded in the next one because they have found devastating problems with it. One of the biggest challenges that I have with the Public Housing Preservation Trust is the fact that these private developers who they are putting on a pedestal aren't bringing in new money. They're simply taking out mortgages on a property that can leave us in jeopardy of foreclosure.
Public safety, quality of life, homelessness, mental health, and substance use remain critical concerns across our district. If elected, what specific state level initiatives or legislative actions would you prioritize to address these challenges?
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick you back, right? Like, my family had to deal with my brother being shot. We grew up in a very dangerous neighborhood. And we have to flee that neighborhood to come here. So the last thing I wanna see is this neighborhood, this district, get to the level that I lived in when I was in the Bronx. We are dealing with an uptick in drug dealing in our public housing buildings, in our, for places like 14th Street. We are dealing with transportation issues and our young people are having a hard time crossing the street because they have to deal with all of these bikes and things that, delivery bikes that are impacting their ability to move around safely. I think that we have to have a comprehensive attack approach on crime and the quality of life in our community. And I think that that starts with making sure we bring resources into our community.
On education, what is your position on mayoral control of New York City public schools? Do you believe the current governance structure should be, which is mayoral control, renewed, reformed, or replaced? And what is your broader vision for how the school system should be governed to best serve students, families, and teachers and educators?
Mayoral control. I am not a fan of mayoral control. I think that it is important that our teachers and our families, parents are at the front and at the table when it comes to making decisions about their education and how we resource each and every one of our schools. We need to make sure that we have checks and balances. When we had Bloomberg, who had mayoral control, those are the type of challenges that we face. Now, some people can argue that we've seen graduation rates go up, but we cannot lock our parents out of the process. And so I will do everything in my power, actually, next assembly number, to make sure that the decision making stays within the educators and with the parents.
Thank you. And as the largest and most segregated school system in the United States with 1.1 million students, what would be your plan to mitigate this pattern?
Sure, so this was an issue I dealt with when I worked at the NAACP, Legal Defense and Education Fund. And what we learned from Brown versus Board of Education is that we need to have a real radical approach when it comes to one, integrating our schools. But I think the focus doesn't need to really stress integration in our schools. Because I think the premise behind integration was flaws. I think what's important is that every student has the ability and opportunity to get quality education. So what I want to do is I want to introduce legislation that is aimed and geared towards making sure that we increase resources, that we review standardized tests in the way that they are used to determine if a child can participate in this school or another. And I think we need more choices for our parents.
My question's on transportation. Do you support Mayor-elect Mamdani's proposal for fare-free buses? If so, how would you fund this initiative while also ensuring adequate resources for bus and subway operations, system maintenance and improvements, major capital projects such as the Second Avenue subway, and accessibility upgrades for riders with disabilities?
Sure, another easy one. Absolutely. I support Mamdani's plan for free buses. I don't think we could just leave it at that. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But if I'm not mistaken, the governor is not in full favor of this. So I think one of the roles that we have to have as state legislators is to push the governor to make sure that this actually happens. We're going to need to put a lot of pressure. I think in terms of funding, I think that there are a lot of areas that we can tap into. I'm also a huge fan of tax the rich. We should be using that 2% tax increase to pay for the subway, to pay for services and pay for other things. But I do think we can find money if we tax the rich.
Okay, my question is on criminal justice and improving outcomes. So what specific state legislation or state action would you support or propose related to criminal justice reform?
Absolutely. This is also something I worked on over the last 20 years. And yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to reform our criminal justice system. I spent a lot of time working on closing Rikers Island and figuring out how do we create an alternative system that also reduces the population. I think the area perhaps that is most critical to me would have to be our seniors. We have a huge population of elders who are incarcerated. Now, I believe you should be held accountable for your actions, but I don't think that we need to continue to keep people in a system where they pose no threat to the general public. I think we are investing a lot of money in this system. And frankly, we need to divert some of those funds into areas that actually prevent people from going through the criminal justice system.
What is your climate resiliency plan for the district? Specifically, how would you address sea level rise and extreme weather? Ensure our district is included in state resiliency and infrastructure funding priorities and reduce inequalities in climate impacts.
Yeah, so you all remember sadly, the entire, what is that? The entire south side of the district is covered by the East River waterfront. We have a coastal resiliency plan that is in the works. I think we need to speed that up a little bit. I'm also concerned about heat. Every year we are seeing more and more 90-degree days. And what that means is that it's our seniors that are impacted the most. So what I want to do is I want to make sure we are redirecting funds so that we are not only opening up more cooling centers, but we need to make sure that there are people who are hired to go around and make sure that all of these cooling centers meet the standards. We also have to grow and plant more trees. We need more shade canopies in our community.
On small businesses and local economy, as a state legislator, what concrete state level reforms or funding priorities would you push for to help the small businesses in the district still struggling with post-pandemic recovery and rising operating costs?
But this is another tough one, because it takes me back, right? As a person who grew up with 9 brothers and kids, the one thing we relied on is going to the local bodega, right? When we didn't have enough money to cover the rest of the week, we wouldn't got credit. We need to make sure the bodegas, the restaurants, and all the other small businesses are able to stay in our community. One of the biggest things that burdens them is rent. We need control commercial rents. We need to set standards and limits on how much landlords can charge and rent. And then I think the second area where we can help small businesses is by making loans more accessible to Black and brown and low income folks so that we can generate more business enterprise in our communities. There is not many places where an impressionable young person can go and start a business in the neighborhood, and I want to be able to help them.
My questions are around the Albany budget, economy, and pushback on Trump. How do you propose that the New York State Legislature fill in the funding gaps that have resulted from Trump's refusal to fund the state?
Thank you. This is another area that's fascinating to me, if you will. I work thoroughly for housing rights, and I have been spending a ton of time in Washington, D.C. and in Albany, pushing for funding, advocating for funding that's already been approved. So I am going to keep going back to Washington, D.C. and pushing for funding to fill whatever gaps. But I think we also need to be realistic. The state is going to have to step up. We are going to have to shift some of our funding priorities to fill some of these gaps, particularly as it relates to Medicaid. We're seeing serious cuts to Medicaid. We're seeing work requirements for things like food stamps. Things are gonna get worse, and we need to make sure that the state is prepared to step up to fill those gaps.
Thank you. How do you think the state can best push back on the Trump agenda? For example, how do you think the state should respond if Trump sends the National Guard to New York City?
I think some of the work that we're doing now, is great work, right? We are making sure that we are creating safe spaces, or what I like to call boiling points, right, where ICE can't survive. I wanna make sure that we are not only educating our businesses, our organizations, we need to make sure that we have the resources and the tools. And that this is everyone's responsibility, right? We all need to protect our folks who are under threat. I think we need to create legislation that will ban or create, again, safe spaces where ICE is not able to go into. I think we need to continue to honor the fact that we are a sanctuary city. And I think we need more legal resources. So we are going to see more and more kidnappings. And we're gonna have to have an army of lawyers to protect and get these folks back into their homes.
Okay, the next question is, what is your plan for building the institutional infrastructure like staff, committee relationships, constituent services that will be necessary for success in Albany?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's important to rely on the experts and the relationships that I have in the community. When I'm looking to staff my office at the next assembly, I'm gonna call on some of my friends, some of you are in this room for you to help me identify who are the best people to take on constituent services. Who's the best person to lead my policy work? Who's gonna be in New York and who's gonna be in Albany? So I think it's a process that I'm not going into alone. And I think what I wanna do is make sure that I hire locally. I wanna make sure that there's diversity in my office, both in terms of people themselves, right, but also in terms of language access. I wanna make sure that we can communicate with all the residents in the district.
So these are our candidate-specific questions now, Marquis. How will you scale your national and community-based experience as an organizer in housing, public health, criminal justice reform, and also a district leader into effective state-level legislative action? 1 minute.
So surprise, I'm not a career politician, right? So I think what I bring is a freshness. I think we need fresh ideas. I think we need someone who's gonna take the 20 years of working with legislators. As I mentioned, I work with legislators in Mississippi, Arkansas, South Carolina, and so on. So what I wanna do is I wanna continue to build coalition. I wanna continue to take the expertise that I have in housing, the expertise I have in public safety and quality of life, and the expertise I have in healthcare, and transform that into a policy platform that I can actually move. So I hope that you guys have the opportunity to read my 3 priorities that I sent to you. Because I'd love to hear some feedback from you all on those priorities.
And your last long form question, can you name a bill you'd introduce to serve the 73rd district?
Yes, and I have to say I'm a little biased here. I'm biased because of my 20 years experience working on public housing issues. And that is the reason, if I'm being honest with you, that got me angry enough to run for the assembly. I spent 20 years advocating for public housing residents as a product of public housing. And in that 20 years, it became very clear there isn't a strong voice for public housing in the assembly. And we need that strong voice. So as the former head of a group called the Residents to Preserve Public Housing, I put together an amendment bill to address the most harmful aspects of the Public Housing Preservation Trust. And so one of the first things I wanna do when I get into this assembly is push that bill and make sure that we protect our public housing. Public housing is the model of how we look at affordability. We should be taken from that, not destroying it.
Okay, now we are up to the lightning round. So I'm gonna ask you some yes or no questions. It's yes, no, or pass. No, okay?
Is that passed?
So the first one, do you support Mayor-elect Mamdani's proposals to freeze the rent? Yes or no?
Yes,
Will you commit to oppose any PPS measures, that's the boycott, divestment sanctions regarding the state of Israel when you're in the legislature?
no,
Do you support or oppose the Not on Our Dime bill, which aims to deregister as nonprofits certain Israel-related charities?
no.
No, you support it or no, you oppose it?
That's the question I wanna make sure I understand.
Do you support or oppose this bill, the Not on the Dime bill, which aims to deregister as nonprofits certain Israel-related charities?
I do not support the bill.
Will you hold any other positions while serving in the legislature?
Not that I can foresee, no.
Do you support or oppose revisions to the raise the age law?
I would have to see what those provisions are. I think we should keep the age limit where it is.
Would you commit to advocating for increased funding for youth services in our district?
Absolutely.
Would you support or oppose an increase to the corporate tax?
I support an increase to the corporate tax.
And do you support raising the New York State income tax?
No, only on big businesses.
Do you support the use of the SHSAT test for admission into the specialized high schools?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that
Do
question?
you support the use of the specialized high school admission test for admission into the 7 New York City specialized high schools?
No, I think there are a lot of flaws in it. No.
No, okay. So here's 2 fun questions. What's your New York City superpower? You're gonna find me parking, walk a lot. No.
I have to go with walking. My best alone time and time I get to thinking outside of my mind is walking.
Okay, and the last one, what's the most New York thing you've done today?
Oh. Running late, getting here and jumping in an Uber.
All right, you get 1 minute for a closing statement, and then we're wrapping up this forum. Make sure you've signed in.
So I know I'm standing between you all and dinner. So I'm gonna try to keep this short. I started off telling you and hoping that you leave this room without a doubt that I can be your next assembly member. This district needs someone who has roots, who understands their community and their culture. This district also needs someone who has the experience, not as a career politician, but experience fighting and winning on real campaigns that have real impact on our community. I've done that for the last 20 years. And now what I'm asking you is to be able to take those skills, take that experience, continue to do the work by leveraging the resources and the connections that exist within the assembly. I'm not here proposing a radical idea. I know what this community wants, and I hope you give me an opportunity to lead it. Thank you.
Thank you all, and if you're on the county committee, you will be notified of the date of the meeting as soon as we have it.